Despite the additions to their squad, Exeter lack the quality to compete at the top level and could be on the end of some big scorelines against the league's best sides. They will find life in the Premiership a big step up in terms of speed and physicality of the game. Well done for getting promoted, but they are in for an almighty shock. Prediction: relegated. 500 to 1 to win the title. 1 to 2 to be relegated. Rugby World Magazine, September 2010. 10 years later, and that team are the champions of Europe. And here's the thing, I don't mean that as a gotcha for Rugby World or Austin Healey. When the first went up, we all assumed something pretty similar. Exeter were a fun underdog who overachieved by playing exactly the way an underdog might. Ugly. Exeter fought, they scrapped, they stayed alive, they kicked the goals and they took their chances. They were the skinny kid on the council estate who could somehow take on trained boxers in car parks. Glee at promotion turned into relief at survival. Survival turned from a focus to an assumption. Standards rose from Champions Cup qualification to playoffs to finals. One of those finals finally turned into a title. And finally, 3 further seasons on, they go all the way. However, I'm not here to talk about their total rise. I'm here to look at the feather in their culturally appropriated cap. So how did Rob Baxter's remarkable Exeter team see off Racing 92 and become the best team in Europe? It's been a particularly great season in the Champions Cup, with major headlines splashing seemingly every single round, and Racing 92 were worthy finalists themselves, slamming into the showpiece after murdering Saracens at the Lose Your Mind Arena just a few weeks earlier. And it was a really well-calibrated final, as of all the sides in the competition, Racing, it turned out, were one of the best set to counter the unique strengths Exeter have graduated from being an underdog approach to title-winning tactics. I talked about this at the Premiership restart, but Exeter's game is so built on playing tight, on being really precise once they get into 22, hard carries, close to the ruck. Just look at Sam Simmons' try. Most forwards carry very low to the ground when near the line, trying to sneak over, but it's common for Exeter to head far higher, knowing their latch and clear out are good enough that it's worth taking the risk of being held up or turned over. Simmons doesn't drive for the line, he drives straight into Clarkson's mid-drift, and it's almost impossible for Racing to wrap and drop him quickly enough. And likewise, their first try, finished by Luke Cowan-Dickey in his immense hipster barber energy, this is an organised effort. It's not just some bloke shoving more better than some other blokes doing. Every single Exeter forward is aware of where the ball is. Their drive isn't blind. It's not about going forward, it's about getting Cowan-Dickey where he's wanting to go. I'm sometimes amazed, by the way, that Luke Cowan-Dickey isn't a name I made up. But yeah, they're trying to get him where he needs to go. Virtually every forward, especially Johnny Gray if you look here, is turning to check on Cowan-Dickey and giving little tugs and shoves to the Racing forwards, trying to clear a path. Is this legal? Who cares, you know? They keep getting away with it. There's an inevitability about Exeter, and yet on Saturday we saw them stopped a genuinely uncanny number of times. In part because of Racing's very solid defence, but largely because their team is almost uniquely set up to stop them. Simply put, all 8 Racing forwards and 2 of their backs are jackal threats. Exeter's forwards will work incredibly hard to track and blow back rows off the ball, but all 3 of Racing's front rowers won turnovers on Saturday, and outside centre Rumi Vakatawa won 2. The ball retention is immense, but if you threaten them often enough, if you pod and pro for long enough, if you can get someone over the ball every single phase, you commit extra bodies to the ruck at the very least, you slow down their play, and you take numbers out of their attack. But if you're doing it as often as Racing were, you will begin to win more turnovers. It's almost the only way to disrupt them, is to really, really attack the ball every single phase. And so Racing won considerably more turnovers in the 22 than I've seen any team achieve against Exeter all season. However, at the start of this game, this was all for naught, as any noble efforts were frequently squandered by the unfortunate timing of normally class scrum half Teddy Aribaren having maybe the worst game of his career. It all began with a missing touch from a penalty in the first minute of the game, as his usual mad shit went to mad and shit. Here, totally alone, he takes a quick throw to himself, up against Jack Nowell, who might... No, actually, I'm just going to say, Jack Nowell is the best defensive winger in the world, and one of the best at the breakdown you'll ever see. Now wins a turnover, and from a penalty, Exeter scored their first try. Minutes later, Aribaren, seemingly inspired by the fact that Thomas Ramos was somehow not put in prison for this attempt to flick the ball through his legs on his own try line when his team Toulouse were down to 13 men a few weeks ago. Aribaren tries this. It gives Exeter position and possession once again. However, Racing scramble, they win a scrum. He sets up his box kick, and Finn Russell begins to set the chase. At which point, Ariba says, nah, do not do the offensive anymore, and chucks it back to Finn, who's barely paying attention. Russell struggles to regather, knocks it on, and Johnny Hill is very unlucky not to finish it there. And then, despite surviving their attack twice, once this knock on by Johnny Gray and once by turning it over, Ariba gives away 2 penalties in quick succession to allow Exeter to remain camped in the 22, until eventually Sam Simmons scores. However, if you want an indication of the kind of player Ariba is, despite seeing his replacement warming up on the touchline and playing as he is, he still attempts a cross-field kick off his wrong foot. And this was actually the start of Racing's comeback. Exeter's defence is very old school. They don't rush or blitz. They walk up, soak up, drift a bit and reset. It's all about conserving energy and doing nothing that might lead to them being bent out of shape. It's very safe, so they can survive near infinite numbers of phases, instead of trying to force a mistake after 1 or 2. However, there is one real weakness in this, and Racing targeted it time and time again. Because the defence is often slow to drift, because they're trying to keep their shape, if Racing can get the ball out fast enough, there's often space in this kind of channel. Exeter's pendulum, the fancy word given for the way the backfield swings into cover, out behind, up behind, in and out, all of this, is exceptional. And it means teams finding space in this channel rarely leads to more than just meterage. Very few clean breaks are made. And yet Racing were able to just keep prodding it. And here, Ariba makes a rare sensible decision, carries it in, Finn calls the ball, and throws a typically phenomenal pass. It's very similar to the ball he threw in Twickenham last year that allowed Sean Maitland to put wee Dart over in the corner here. Russell isn't actually passing to anybody. O'Flaherty is watching Zebo, waiting for Zebo. The ball, however, isn't going to Zebo. It's going to the space. This baits O'Flaherty into trying to go for the interception, selling himself, and allowing Zebo to drift around and into the space Finn intended, making the clean break. Hogg has to check the support, and it allows Zebo to finish superbly in the corner. And his second try was even more directly from attacking this space. Racing have been going through the phases until they eventually spin it out fast enough. The Exeter team at large, haven't been able to drift. This means O'Flaherty is too Flaherty and has to essentially do the entire team's drift himself. He can't manage it in time, and Zebo can scream through for a second fantastic finish. Meanwhile, off this scrum, Racing's backs all drift as the ball comes out, meaning they can move major threat Vakatawa into that gap, only for him to flick the pass to Zebo, hitting a proper fullback's line into it. However, back as the scrum ends, back row Sankone drifts right out to the wing. Exeter's backs are only watching their opposite quick boys, and Russell is able to drop the kick right out to the wing for his flanker to regather and stretch the defence in both directions. Racing continue to play for a few phases, and eventually it gets to here. After passing the ball, there's a cute bit of, backfiring shithousery from Exeter as they smash Ariba off the ball, but that only allows for Imhoff, who is of course the sole winger in a family full of scrum halves, to slot in at 9. He picks, and as he's about to thread the pass, notices a gap. Johnny Gray is having to watch both Camille Schatt here, one of the side's biggest ball carriers, and Finn Russell, the tricksy pass boy himself, and he isn't even looking at the scrum half. There's a brief moment of disconnecting the defence, and Imhoff is rapid enough to exploit it and finish for the try that puts Racing right back in the game. However, it was all for now in the end, as the exact pass that Russell threw for Zebo's first try also backfires on him, leading to the try that ultimately proved to be the difference. This ball is, once again, aiming for outside the player. Russell isn't passing to the man. The idea is supposed to be that Nowell watches his opposite player, who then changes the line last second and explodes past Nowell. Except Nowell is, as I've just said, the best defensive winger in the world, and reads the pass better than Russell's own teammate does. Nowell takes it, he offloads, and then Henry Slade is able to canter in and over for the try. This pass looks incredibly stupid when watching it back by Russell. That's been the discourse around this score, and don't get me wrong, it's too ambitious, especially for Zone 22, but I think more credit deserves to go to the read from Jack Nowell than has necessarily gone to him. He makes Russell's pass go from looking brave to just looking bad. And it's a kind of bravery Rob Baxter's Exeter have never really tried over their 12-year journey to the summit. I'm not going to pretend money didn't play its part in this. Signing smartly right from Jeff Parling and Thomas Waldrum in the day to Stuart Hogg more recently has helped immensely, but they built this journey on good decision making and practical application on the field, turning an underdog strategy into a definitive brand of rugby that may be on the cusp of becoming a dynasty. Next week, they take on, presumably Wasps, for a shot at the double. However, whilst I want to get carried away about how heavy favourites Exeter are, and they are, this is not the 500 to 1 shot we were looking at 10 years ago. Wasps are a team stacked with Jackalers in pretty stunning form and for the kind of pace that has caught Exeter out a couple of times this season. I'm really excited to see how things go because are a side who have never got ahead of themselves, a side who climb slowly from no-hopers to being the best team in Europe. Always taking things just one almighty shock at a time. Ahoy hoy, we are now into the busy period. That was my report on the European Cup final. If you needed me to tell you that, then you clearly weren't paying enough attention, but thank you for watching anyway. And thank you to everyone that didn't need that. There's, of course, the Premiership final next weekend, as well as the return of Test Rugby. So the Bledisloe Cup game will be covered on Friday. That's when that video is due. I've also got this podcast going on the 2011 Rugby World Cup. There's a new episode going up tomorrow, so hopefully you'll enjoy all of those. There's a huge back catalogue. We're over halfway through that World Cup now. If you want to go back and listen to those, they're on Spotify, Acast, all of the usual podcast platforms. As well as, plenty more rugby content on the channel. If you want to have a look at my lengthy video on how Japan beat the Springboks, please go ahead and do that. Have a look at any of the rest, and I will see you in a couple of days' time when I am even more bleary-eyed and have covered the Bledisloe Cup. Thank you very much. See you then.